I'm Spencer Chiak. You're listening to KEDT 90.3, your community-owned station. I'm joined now by Solomon Ortiz Jr., running for state representative for District 34. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. Thanks for having me today.
So a few weeks left before Election Day. Just overall, how you've been feeling?
You know, it's been great. This campaign it's been a lot of fun. It's been really exciting. And, I was talking to somebody the other day. I announced last July, so I've been campaigning now for a year and 2 months or so. So, it's exciting. It's been just a great experience, obviously talking to people, meeting so many people, and obviously, talking to folks about the policy issues that are important to them. And now, early voting starts October 21st, so we're just 20-something days away from early voting starting. So it's an exciting time, and we're glad to be on the campaign trail.
What made you want to throw your hat in the ring so early?
So I had previously served, for those listeners who maybe follow politics a little more, back in the day, I served in the Texas legislature from 2006 to 2011. Been out of politics, elected office. Didn't really have any plans. I didn't necessarily see myself running for office again, but when Representative Herrero announced that he was retiring, I had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, you should consider, running, getting back in. And sure enough, here we are over a year later, have been campaigning for a while. So it's been great.
What are some of the main policies you'll be promoting if elected?
Yeah, so there's, as you can imagine, there's not a lack of issues, right? But some of the issues that, have really bubbled up to the top or are more priority, funding public education. That's been one of the biggest issues. Last session, some listeners may remember or may know that there was a push to pass school vouchers, and that's one of the issues that really kind of gummed up the legislature. A lot of, bipartisan group of legislators opposed school vouchers for the fact that it would take money away from public schools and give it to private entities. I support our public schools, and so that's one of the issues that, while on the campaign trail, people constantly ask about is, what's the future of public education? What's the future of funding public education? Back in the day, I used to be a teacher. I taught for a year at CCISD, and so I have a lot of admiration and respect for teachers. And, we hear about it all the time. Teachers need to get paid more. Teachers need to be given the respect that they're due for the teaching profession. After all, teachers are the ones that are molding our future workforce, are molding, the future of our state and our region here in South Texas. So that's one of the issues that's really, a priority and really has kind of been a key issue that people reach out about. One of the other issues that's been extremely important is women's health issues, making sure that women have access, for their health needs. Here recently, there's been extremely restrictive bans on having, if a woman gets raped or in a case of incest, there's no exceptions for rape or incest in the state of Texas. And quite frankly, that's something that's concerning for everybody. That's another issue that's really been a priority, and individuals constantly ask me about while out on the campaign trail. And obviously we have so many other issues. We have a huge port here in Corpus. We're one of the largest ports in the nation. Making sure that we have the workforce for, the port and for that industry. So we've been working, with different entities to make sure that's also addressed. A&M Corpus, when I was in the legislature back in the day, one of the issues that I fought for was to help create the A&M Engineering School. It took us 2 sessions, but we got it done, and that was back in 2010. And so here we are, some 14 years later. The engineering school has really flourished at A&M Corpus, and so that's something that I was proud of working on back in the day. And we got to continue to expand our just right here in this building, where we're with Del Mar. Del Mar is really a jewel that we have here in South Texas in terms of education. I've trained the Job Workforce Training Center, whether it's the nursing program, whether it's the welding program. Del Mar just offers so much opportunity for our kids, and we got to make sure and keep funding them and making sure that they get the resources they need.
For education and vouchers, why do you think it's come to the point where some people feel it would be better just for students to be able to take that voucher to go to a private school?
And what was discussed in the legislature last session was roughly around $7,000 or so for vouchers. But the reality is that, that's not what private schools cost. And so, for example, if you're going to, here St. James, uptown and near downtown Corpus Christi, St. Patrick's, these other private schools, they cost more than $7,000. So what ends up happening, or what will end up happening, is that people who really need the money, they're not going to have enough to bridge the gap between what a private school actually cost and what the voucher would provide. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that the kids that then are in the public school system, these schools will have even less resources, which in effect will cripple the public school system. And so the folks that would benefit from vouchers are the already wealthy, who, you have, $15,000, $20,000 a year tuition. Well, you have a $7,000 a year voucher. That just amounts to a coupon, or welfare for the wealthy, and ends up happening the individuals who can't bridge that gap, they end up not being able to even go to begin with. And so the consequence is less funding for our public schools, which nobody wants.
Women's reproductive health certainly has been a hot button issue. The majority of people who pass Texas's current law is expected to remain. Do you think it's possible for them to say, let's go back and change this?
It is, because there's been a ton of public pressure, right? And I think you're seeing the legislators feel that public pressure, especially during election season, right? The fact that the restrictions are, just think about it, just, for the listeners to think about it. There are no exceptions for rape or incest. Imagine you're married, your spouse is raped. You have no options. If you have a young 12, 13-year-old daughter gets raped or incest, and this is not just, imagining this scenarios. We see this reported on the news all the time. Or if the woman is having some sort of fetal abnormality to where it may jeopardize her life. There was just a Supreme Court ruling just not even a week ago that said that it doesn't matter if the woman's life is in jeopardy. There are no exceptions. And, I think for most Texans, that is not acceptable. There needs to be, exceptions for these situations. And I think it's an extremely radical position to have. And, we're even seeing communities on the border of Texas with other states making it illegal to even drive through their city, drive through their county. Now, I think most reasonable people listening would think that that's a bit extreme. And unfortunately, that's the state we're in Texas. And, we need individuals in the legislature that can articulate those points and push back on, God forbid, any other further restrictions. And so, that's one of the things that is also, again, a priority for my campaign, to make sure women have those reproductive options.
Something that your opponent has brought up has been policing.
Yeah.
She was endorsed by the police union. Just the opportunity now to just explain how you would like to see reform, any type of reform. And
explain
that position.
In politics, as you can imagine, you see these political ads. What my opponent is not saying is that I've also been endorsed by the police. I've been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police here in Corpus Christi. And actually, the FOP is the largest police union in the nation. And so this is just dirty campaigning. She's running these ads saying that I'm against the police. That's the furthest thing from the truth. My father was sheriff of Nueces County. My father was a constable back in the 60s. My father served as a military policeman and a criminal investigator in the Army. My uncle on my mother's side, Mike Roldan, was a longtime constable in Robstown in West County. To somehow say that I am anti-police, give me a break. That is just political nonsense. But we are in the political season, and so that's what my opponent is saying. It's it couldn't be further from the truth. And again, I've been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police Corpus Christi chapter. So, her position and her statements are just, falsehoods.
Crime certainly an issue in Corpus Christi. What would you like to see done to better help law enforcement?
Law enforcement needs more resources. Here in Corpus Christi, we don't have the recommended ratio for police officers here in the community. We're short probably 50 to 100 officers to meet the, what is considered the standard for cities of our size. So we need to make sure that the local police department has those resources, to make sure that their staffing levels are adequate, to make sure they have the tools, the equipment that they need as well. And you're right. We've seen crime, increase in Corpus. Every time you open the newspaper or read the news, it seems like there's, something that's happened here in the community. So I am for, providing those resources. In the legislature, one of the jobs of a state rep is there's a ton of state grants available for different communities, but you have to actually go and seek them, and you have to go apply for them, and you need your state legislator, your state senators to advocate for you to make sure that you get those grants and resources, and that's one of the things that I'll prioritize in the legislature for our community.
Certainly another issue in Corpus Christi, water, the desalination plant coming up.
That's a big one.
Should you win, how would you go to Austin and help fix this problem?
Yeah, so, right now we're seeing that, headline, and it's right now the issue's obviously being more debated at the city level. The city, I believe just a week ago or so, chose a contractor to build the desal plant. My position has been, since day one, that I oppose the Hillcrest Inner Harbor desal plant. I am not against desal as a science. I am not against desal in general, but I'm against desal where they want to put it now. It does not make any sense. Just think about it. They want to put it in the Inner Harbor, where not only they'll be sucking up the water, they'll also be discharging the brine into the same water where there's very little water exchange. I've talked to countless individuals, whether it's the Texas State Aquarium, whether it's fishermen, outdoorsmen, whether it's the oyster farmers. There's an emerging oyster industry happening here. The Lomaxes at Water Street, they have their own brand of oyster now. The salinity levels could really be thrown out of whack to where it would not only jeopardize the fish, the oysters, but birds who then feed on the fish. The Texas State Aquarium, many people don't know, the water they use for the aquarium, the water they use for all their animals comes directly from the bay, and they do testing every hour, 24 hours a day, to test the water levels. And they have concerns. A lot of people, really a broad spectrum of individuals have concerns of what the consequences would be. And we saw just, the other day, the Port of Corpus Christi has a different desal plan where they would actually pipe out the brine miles out into the Gulf. That just makes more sense. It makes more, it just makes more environmental sense. The city of Corpus has not done, or at least has not disclosed, any of their far field modeling. And I think there's a reason why they haven't disclosed it, because it doesn't look good. And so that issue has been an extremely hot topic. The way the state is involved is with the Water Development Board, because they provide a lot of the grants and resources for that. And so I think that this issue, there's still a long way to go on this issue before anything is finalized.
Certainly, final topic, a bit of a statewide issue, but certainly something you'd have to deal with, is immigration in Texas.
Yep.
Operation Lone Star, certainly making headlines at the beginning of the year. What do you think Texas's role should be in immigration?
I think all of us want to make sure that we have, our safety and, reasonable immigration laws. But what I don't think Texas want is for $10 billion, which is what the Governor Abbott has currently spent on Operation Lone Star, to do the job that the federal government should be doing. Immigration is federal government policy. States do not have any legal authority over immigration. This is all federal government policy. Listeners may remember just a few months ago, there was a bipartisan immigration reform bill that was proposed, and former President Trump told Republican leadership, don't let that bill pass, because I don't want to give President Biden a win. That's not how you solve policy, problems in either the federal level, state level, or local level. You don't say no to things because it's not to your political advantage. And that's what the Republicans have done with this issue. Think about it, $10 billion that Greg Abbott has spent, on this Lone Star, Operation Lone Star. Meanwhile, our teachers can't get a pay raise. Meanwhile, our schools are crumbling. Meanwhile, our institutions of higher learning here at Del Mar, A&M Corpus, that vastly need more resources, have their hands tied because the state is putting money on an issue that is the responsibility of the federal government. So I think that money could be better spent. And I think, if you want to be responsible, or, at the federal level, both parties need to address immigration reform in a meaningful way. This issue has been going on for years. I mean, the last time there was any kind of immigration reform was during Reagan. I believe it was 1984. I think a lot of listeners probably weren't even born yet before that happened. So the fact that nothing's been done, it should be concerning to a lot of people and to a lot of listeners. There's a way forward, and the way forward is not to just use it as a political football, which unfortunately is what's happened now.
Is there anything we haven't discussed that you were hoping to?
Oh man, I'm sure there's a lot of things we haven't discussed. We could be here all day, but at the end of the day, I ask for voters and for the community, get informed. This is a consequential election this year. We're obviously voting for president. We're voting for our state level politicians here locally, city council, school board. All these positions impact your life one way or another. If it's the school board, it impacts your kids going to school. If it's city council, it impacts local roads, the DSAL project. There's been a political hot potato with the library board and the individuals who were recently appointed now wanting to ban certain books at the city council level. So each level of government is going to touch your life one way or another. So it's incumbent upon our listeners here to get informed on who's running for office. Get on their website, see where their policy positions are, and see if they align with your personal views. And get out there and help out your candidates that you want to see win. Democracy works best when people participate, and we always see voter turnout 10, 20, 30%. We have over 200,000, maybe 220,000 registered voters in Nueces County, but we have such a low participation rate. So we need everybody to pay attention to what's happening in politics. It's it's going to impact your life. And so as far as my race goes, again, Solomon Ortiz Jr. running for state representative, District 34. You can get on my website, solomonortizjr.com, to find out more about other policy positions. I have a detailed list of different policy stances on my website, and I encourage folks to to get informed and get involved.
Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you so much. It was great being here.
This has been a KEDT Election Coverage Special. Tune in to the KEDT 90.3 FM Mayoral Roundtable on October 30th at 9 a.m. And follow us on social media at Your KEDT on Facebook, Instagram, and X.